Hello, hello, my magical friends. So apparently I did a live and I went to share and hit the delete button instead. So I got to go and do it over again. And I'm not going to take as much time as I did last time. So for those of you that don't know me, my spiritual name is Annika with Witchful Ways. And it is Monday. And your Monday magical news is in your inboxes if you are on the email list. If you're not on the email list, there's freebies that come with the email list, so make sure you get on it at witchfulways.com. And today I'm going to go over magic with the moon phases, because I was in a different group and not my own, is in a different group, and somebody had asked a question about whether the witch's moon or whether the new moon and the dark moon were the same thing. I elaborated what I teach and my thoughts on it, and then they asked for a little bit more clarification. So like I said, I did one previously. If you caught that other live, thanks for being there with me, but for some reason it hit the wrong button or corrupted it or whatever, and it wouldn't upload or allow it to be played. So I'm going to redo it. Quick Witchful Ways news right in the beginning is, again, your emails are in your inboxes. The card of the week is back, and your Wednesday Witchcraft spell of the week will be back as well this week. So let's go over the different moon phases, because that was the question. This week on the 11th in my area, it is February 2021 for those that are watching in the future. This week on the 11th is the dark moon. On your calendar, it's going to say new moon, okay? So we put an extra moon phase in there. So I'm going to go through the different phases, and I'm just going to hit the major 5 and kind of go from there. So your moon phase, your cycle, starts with the moon phase of the dark moon. The dark moon is when you see no light of the moon in the sky, right? The moon is dark, okay? The sky is dark. That's what they call the dark moon. Now, again, on calendars, like the calendars that you buy from Hallmark and stuff, it'll say new moon on there. Traditional witchcraft has that extra phase in there, so we call it the dark moon. The dark moon, so in a sense, they are the same thing if you just practice it, but they're different. So the dark moon phase is a time of contemplation. The dark moon phase is a time that you are doing a lot of inner work, introspective, shadow work. If it's a time of stillness, it's a time of contemplation, planning, relaxing. If you do cursing, hexing, jinxing, those kind of things, that's the perfect phase of the moon to be working within that. Okay, so that is the dark moon, no light in the sky. Then that phase lasts about 2 to 3 days. Then we move into the witch's new moon. This witch's new moon is when you see that very first sliver of light of the moon in the sky, right? Little bitty crescent sliver. That's the witch's new moon. That is the time where you take the plans that you had been doing during the dark moon and plant the seeds, so to speak, or take the action, start taking action on what your intentions are for the cycle or a long-term goal within that cycle. Okay, so that is the witch's new moon. That's when you start to manifest things, because we're moving from the dark moon all the way through to the full moon. That is the waxing phase. That's when your moon is growing bigger. So that's called waxing. And during that time is when you are bringing things into your life. Okay, it's attraction kind of magic that's worked during that time. So if you want to bring more of something in, that's the time that you do it, during those 14 days or 2 weeks from the dark moon to the full moon. There is something called a quarter moon that's right in between there, right? That is a time that you will take stock of, if you decide. Some people never deal with the quarter moons at all. You take stock of what you are doing, and what needs to be tweaked, what's going on at this point. So you've got 4 points, right? So you've got as you go through the cycle. basically. So that's what one of the your first quarter moon is you kind of take stock of, okay, do I need to give something a little bit of an extra push? Do I need to bring some additional energies into my life to do whatever your intention is that you're working on? Okay, so that's a quarter moon. Then we're going to move past, there's also crescent moons in between there, but we're going to move into the full moon. The full moon is, of course, everybody knows a full moon, right? Bright ball in the sky. Well, I guess that's kind of the sun, but dim ball in the sky. The full moon. The full moon is a culmination. The full moon is a celebration. The full moon is bringing things into light. The full moon is energy that is persuasive. So you've all probably kind of heard that, babies are born. More babies are born during the full moon phase. And women's cycles will sync up with the full moon, those kind of things. And we have to take under understanding that the full moon has powerful reaction or effect, if you will, not reaction, I guess that would be the other part, powerful effect on water and cycle, and therefore energy flow as well. Universal energy flow. So there's a lot of power during that time. Now, any of these phases can be worked the day before, the day of peak, and the day after, and still be considered the same 100% battery charge. Okay? Some people will go even further. Again, your practice is 100% completely up to you. Whatever you cycle with is absolutely perfect for you. I always say you do you witchypoo, right? Like, that's the bottom line of it. But so your full moon, if you're working just a 14-day spell from the dark moon to the full moon, this is where you're going to end that spell, that you're just bringing something in. If you're working through the entire cycle, this is going to be a power boost phase, right? This is going to be where, okay, we've worked to what we want to bring in with the growing. Now we have to start with what moving into, once we hit peak full, now we're moving into the waning phase, which means we're growing dimmer back down into the dark moon, right? So our full moon starts to grow dimmer until it goes dark again. So that's the waning moon. That is the time where we get rid of things. We banish things. We release things that are no longer serving us. We move from what we want to attract and grow into what we want to remove and reduce, okay? And then it has that quarter moon, that last quarter as well. And that's a time where we take stock again. It's kind of like a checkpoint for us and go, okay, where are we at? What do I need to do in this energy phase before we move it back into the conclusion of the cycle, which is going to be the dark moon once again. So that's kind of the cycling of it. So your dark moon is a phase of 2 or 3 days that is contemplative, shadow work, introspective, planning, cursing, hexing, if that's what you do. And then we move into the, into the waxing towards the full moon, which is flourishing, abundance. What do we want to bring in, right? Pull it all into us so we get nice and fat like the full moon. And then we start to spew things out from us. And we start to get rid of everything and shrink ourselves down back into the dark moon. And that's the easiest way that I think of it, is somebody just kind of eating until they're full and then just kind of getting rid of things until they're ready to eat again. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Now I want to go off a little bit here and say that 2 different things. First, you have to make sure that you correlate to the phases that you're working with. So when I say the full moon is a time of great energy and people feel energized and get a lot of stuff done and, all that kind of thing. If you get to the full moon and you're like, I don't feel like that at all. Like, I totally feel like the full moon is a time I just want to chill and look at it and, just kind of hang out and journal or whatever. That means that you've got a different than the traditional correspondence to it. And that's absolutely perfect. And it's even better than perfect because, is there such a thing? But it's even better for you because you're understanding your personal cycles and the connection within universal energy flow. That's one of the most powerful things that a witch can have, is their internal knowledge of how they interact and connect with everything. So when you're working with tools, when you're working with ingredients, when you're working with phases, whether it be phases of the moon or phases of the year, right? So I always say, like, a lot of people say, correlate the summertime to a lot of energy and outdoorsy, kind of movement and brightness and, getting things done. And the winter time is more laid back, introspective, kind of thing. I am completely opposite. I just kind of sync up completely opposite. In the wintertime now is where I'm full of energy, ready to get things done, ready to move things the way that I need it to be done, get projects done, get planning done, all that kind of stuff. And the summertime comes, it's really the lazy days of summer for me. It's sitting there and just kind of chilling for the entire time. So however you sync up with your emotional attachment and reaction to the phases and the items that you're working with. Because remember, correspondences were made originally by somebody else's emotional attachment to something. Somebody else's attachment to the color green meant money. They wrote it down, and now everybody, not everybody, but now there's books and books that say green means money, right? Green candles mean money. If gold means money to you, if yellow means money to you, then that's what you should be using. I personally, a lot of times use white candles because way back in the day, they didn't have colored candles. So I use the power of the herbs and the other things along with it. But I digress with that. Phases of the moon. So make sure that you are corresponding your magical workings and yourself with how you respond to the phases. So I invite you to take a 3-month time span, a 3-month cycle, to write down just a few points every day of how you feel during those days. Every day, or at least every other day, whatever, at least once, whatever. Get it down, just some bullet points. I feel happy, I feel joyous, I feel like laughing. Or maybe I feel sad, I feel fearful, and I feel anxious. You know, whatever it is. Because once you get through with those 3 months, when you're able to go back and review them, you're going to notice a pattern, and that's going to correlate with how you respond to the full moon and how you respond to the new moon and how you respond to the quarter moons, right? You'll have a full 3-month cycle. You can do it longer if you want to, but to kind of go through and go, okay, you know what? I feel like this is really how I correspond. And it may be completely different from what the traditional correspondence is, again, because that was somebody else's emotional attachment to something and how they reacted to it. Okay. The last thing that I want to say about moon phases in magic is that no matter what the moon phase is, you can work any type of magic. So a lot of people think the full moon is for any kind of magic at all, right? Like it's just a powerhouse, you can do any kind of magic, which is truth, because you can do any kind of magic at any time during the entire month. And the thing is that if you're trying to bring something into your life, but you're in the waning moon phase, right? Those are opposites. You can still work your magic. You can do one of two things. You can say, how can I tweak this so that it works within the waning moon phase? How do I move this to be something that I can release, but that will still bring about the desire that I want? Or you can do whatever it is that you want to bring in for yourself, but you have to overcompensate with the energy that's raised for that magical working. So because you are, for lack of better terms, you're magicking against the flow, okay? Kind of like if you are trying to swim, right, down a stream to get from point A to point B, and you're swimming with the flow of the current. If you're doing magic that fits within that phase, you're swimming or magicking with the flow of the universal energy flow, right? But if you're at point B and need to swim back to point A, now when you jump in, you're swimming against the current. That doesn't mean that you can't make it back to point A. That just means that you have to expend more energy to be able to get there, to be able to receive or achieve what it is that you desire. So hopefully that makes sense. So you can do any kind of magic. Just be aware of how you personally correlate to the phase of the moon, your ingredients and your tools, so that you know what you're using is going to be working the best possible powerful magic for yourself, and that you know within the moon phase how much energy you need to be expending. Hopefully that all made sense to you. I'm super happy to answer questions always. If you're in the Sister Circle membership, I am 100% available for, one-on-ones and things like that for all of the members in there for questions. If you're not in the membership, make sure you're in the free group, the Living a Magical Life Facebook group of mine. And that one you can post questions in there and others will answer, and I'm in there all the time too, so I will give answers when I can in there as well. But just remember that it's really your witchcraft is not defined by anyone else's definition of anything. So if somebody says, well, this is what a rose quartz means, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what it means for you. And you need to master what it is that those things mean for you, so you have an arsenal that you can really back into with your magic, and you don't have to worry about, oh my goodness, I got to find devil's shoestring for this spell that I found. No, you don't. You have mastered what you know that you have available to be able to create whatever desired outcome that you have. Okay, so hopefully that answered the question that was posed about the phases. Again, if there's questions, get a hold of me. Also check, hello, Randy. Also check the today's podcast, this week's podcast, Witchful Ways podcast. You can find it on the website or any of your favorite podcast streaming app. The Witchful Ways podcast today went over 4 reasons why your spells are probably not working. And then last week's was, are you in alignment for manifesting? So those 2 together are some pretty powerful information just to be able to get over a lot of questions and humps that some people may find themselves in. Okay, that's it. Thanks so much for joining me today. And I hope to connect with you all real soon. Have a wonderfully magical rest of your day.